Bit of a wet and windy day today, so I thought I'd share with you a little bit about drive belts and why it's so important to change them and how they could cost you thousands just by not changing a couple of belts that might cost you $100 or so. So, here we go. Let's just get into this. My name's Mark. I run a company called All In Vehicle Inspections, and I'm trying to spot these issues when you're buying a vehicle so that I can inform you as to what maintenance might not need to be done, what maintenance hasn't been done, and also anything that might come up that might cause some issues in the future. And drive belts is one of these things. Now, this is an old style belt. In terms, it's called a V belt. See these in a lot of old vehicles. See, there you go. Called a V belt for a reason. Try and see if I can get you to see that, because they're shaped like a V. We're not very clever, us mechanics, coming up with names. We'll just call it what it is. The spade's a spade. And I just thought I'd share with you how you can spot one that is faulty and why it's important to change them. So let's just get into this. Number one of the things we've got to be aware of, particularly with serpentine belts today, a lot of them don't show signs of wearing before they're actually about to snap. So one of the things is that a lot of belts have been put into service schedules. And when they're at the manufacturer, you might get to, 100,000 kilometers and they might change the belts. And you think, why are they doing that? They don't look faulty. Well, the reality is that the rubber's got very good, but they're still stretching and they're still wearing. And eventually what will happen is they'll snap. And particularly the big, long serpentine belts, when they snap, they're going at such a speed that they'll wrap themselves around whatever's around. And if it's caught on the engine at the bottom, which is also turning, it can drag in whatever it catches. Now, I've seen wiring, sensors, pipes just grabbed and dragged. And of course, the next thing is that the engine stops. And particularly if it's dragging wiring harnesses into itself, can cause a lot of damage. So it's really worth keeping on top of drive belts. And I just thought I'd show you these ones here. So I've had it on the cards to change these belts for a little while now, and they are slipping a bit. And I'll show you the reason why. Now, a lot of people think that these drive belts, when they go in, they think that they're being driven by that part, the part that's on my finger right now, okay, like that. And that isn't how these work. It's also not how they fail, okay? So they sit in a pulley that is the shape of a V, right? Like that. And these are a V. And see if I can show you that. So they sit at the top and sometimes slightly proud of the pulley. Okay, so round pulley, shaped like a V, and then the belt will sit in that pulley. And what we want to see, I think, let's see if I can just see it. You see that gap under my fingers? All right, see that little gap that's under my fingers there? All right, that is the most important part about a belt driving itself. Okay, so what's happening is when that belt goes into the V, it wedges itself in. We use this in a few different places in automotive. We use it on the steering, on the stub axles, on the ball joint, sorry. We have a V because when we do up the nut, it wedges it in. And even if the nut comes undone, even if it overcomes the split pin and the lock nut, if it's got one, and it comes off, the wedging action really does stick it in. So it's a less likely for it to actually come apart, and it stops it from turning as well in the joint. So this V here, it's really important that we've got a gap underneath, because we want that wedging action of the belt. So as the belt is driven by the engine, it's pulled into the pulley, and that jamming action, right, that's the bit that actually gives you grip. So what happens over time, that surface area here, this surface area here, wears, and it gets further and further down that V until eventually it actually sits on the bottom of that V, and now it hasn't got a wedging action to actually grip hold. So what's happening then? So what's happening is we put this belt on, and might be an alternator, water pump, fan, air conditioning, and we tension it, okay? So we tension that up, and we're tensioning it into that V. And over time, that tension, this belt will loosen, and we'll lose the tension. So as we lose the tension, it starts to slip. And that's why we have a service interval where we check it, and then we'll tighten it up again. We don't want it too tight. If it's too tight, it's going to put excess load on the bearings, and water pump bearings, alternator bearings can all be damaged by over tightening one of these. So we don't want it too tight, but also we don't want it too loose. And when they're loose, and in particularly when they start to get old, what you'll start to see is they'll glaze up. Just see if I can show you this. Get my face behind it. Go, way. Come on, pay attention to what I'm trying to show you here. Come on. There we go. Oh, I think it's done it. There we go. Okay, so can you see this? Still trying to do my face. There we go. Can you see how that's glazed there? When the belt starts to get hard and it starts to go very shiny, then it starts to lose its grip on that V surface. All right? It can wear the belt, and obviously it will wear the actual V itself. And you also see that the rubber is deteriorating. You see how the rubber's getting old? It's actually starting to fall to pieces there, and you start to see cracks. In the good old days, cracks used to be a very good indication that belts were worn. There is one quite bad crack on one of these. Let's see if I can't see it off the top of my head. Off the top of my head. Oh, there you go. There's a little bit like that. So you can look into these when you're inspecting a vehicle, whether it's your own or you're looking to buy one. We'll see that there. Now, obviously, you can't, bending these backwards doesn't do belts any good. But that crack there, and I've seen big chunks missing out of them too, really tells you that those belts need to be changed. And like I said, in a vehicle, if you're buying it, it could cost you maybe $200 or $300 to replace them. Also, it might need a bearing, an idler too. But these are the sort of things you can look out for. Shiny edges, cracks in the belts, okay, like that. And the other thing to look out for is how low this belt is sitting in the V. So if I was to say, often a good belt will sit like that, just slightly proud, but a worn belt often will sit in like that. All right, so there's three good indications. So looking at the side here to see if it's very, very shiny. You can feel it, it's very hard. You can see cracks that are appearing within it. And also if there's chunks missing too, and if it's sitting really well down into the pulley. There's some really good signs. Now this is what a good belt looks like. So if you can see that, try and cover my face so it focuses on the belt. There you go, see the belt. You get a lot of belts now that come like this. And this sidewall here actually sticks out further. It's not flat. It actually sticks out a bit more, helps with the wedging action. Okay. And you can see there's no cracks or anything in it at all. It's got a bit of fabric in it for strength, and the rubber there as well to actually keep it, to give it its grip. But it's not supposed to be running on this edge. So we don't need a flat surface here, because it actually runs on this surface here. And if I put this one back to back, these two belts back to back, I don't know how much you'll be able to see this. It's a little bit fiddly, just bear with me for a sec. But if I put those back to back, can you see how one belt is wider? The new belt is actually sticking out here. And that's how much this has worn. This belt has worn. Okay, and it's the same on the inside. That inside area and this inside area is that much thinner again. And again, you'll see that as it wedges down, or it doesn't wedge down into the drive pulley. So there you go. There is drive belts. That's how you check your drive belts. That's what you're looking for. The obvious ones obviously are cracking, jamming in below the top, and just glazed areas. And you keep an eye out for that, and you'll be able to spot whether a vehicle has actually had its services for a start, but also has actually whether it's due a belt or not. And if people have been doing their own servicing too, then often you'll find things like this just don't get changed under a service because they think, looks fine. What's wrong with that? But actually they are wearing and stretching, and they are actually they're not doing their job as they should be. So there you go. We don't want them to snap, so we do check them under services, and we should be checking them as part of what we do. So that's drive belts, wet and windy day. If you need your vehicle inspected in South Australia, vans, trucks, buses, whatever it is, give us a shout. www.aivi.au is my website. It's all in vehicle inspections. If you're looking for a vehicle to be inspected, whether you're looking to buy it or whether you own it, give us a shout and we can help you out. Take it easy.